Welcome to Game Savers Podcast, your next-gen gaming podcast for news, reviews, previews, impressions, analyses, and roundtable discussions involving past, present, and future games. My name is Tony Morris, and today I'm joined by my friend and co-host.
I'm Wayne, and I love video games.
And we're also joined by Meme Lord Extravaganza Master, Jack Findley.
Hi, how's it going? My name's Jack. I'm just a casual gamer and a meme lord, so you know.
You know where to find him, that's right. So without further ado, this week's episode is regarding any news and updates in the world of gaming we have for the week of November 4th, which is just barely a week away from these new console launches. There's obviously a ton going on. We've got a lot of topics we want to discuss today. And before we do that, what we're going to do is go ahead and read off some of the upcoming games that are coming out here shortly. So we've got obviously Cyberpunk, which has been delayed to December 10th. We've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is coming out on all platforms November 10th. Dirt 5 on November 6th. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered coming out November 6th. Gears Tactics is finally coming out on consoles November 10th. Planet Coaster Console Edition November 10th. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity on the Nintendo Switch will be coming out November 20th. Demon's Souls for the PlayStation 5 on November 10th. Spider-Man Miles Morales is with it. Sackboy, A Big Adventure, Godfall, and Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which is coming out November 13th. We also have World of Warcraft Shadowlands happening here in a few weeks on November 23rd on the PC. So we're going to talk about some other launch titles and go a little bit deeper on those in our next episode coming up next week when we discuss the next-gen preview. Be sure to tune in for that. But let's talk a little bit about these upcoming releases. Obviously, Cyberpunk's delayed. That's a heartbreaker. Ouch.
Yeah, I mean, you say it's a heartbreaker. I think there's positives to be taken from that. Now, I know that not everyone's going to agree with me on this, but I'm getting the Series X on November 10th, and Cyberpunk wasn't going to come out until the following week, the 19th. That would have left me with kind of like 9 days to play something else, but you don't want to start anything too big because Cyberpunk's coming. So I didn't want to start into Assassin's Creed Valhalla. My plan was actually to play Tetris for a week and a few days because there's the new Tetris Connected. It's like a Battle Royale Tetris on Series X. And I was just going to chill with that for a week until Cyberpunk came out. But now that Cyberpunk's been pushed back, everything seems a bit like more evenly spaced, and it's going to give me time to at least play a good chunk of Valhalla. I'm happy with that. And then, I mean, there's that ongoing discussion. Everyone knows it, you know. The longer they take to make a game, the better it's going to be in the long run. I'm happy. What about you guys? Were you disappointed whenever the news was dropped?
I was actually kind of happy about it, mainly because I like the direction of the gaming design market going forward to like delays. Like, I know it's kind of been like a taboo subject for a long time, especially with like crunch, earlier release dates and everything like that. So I think the farther they push that back, the better the game's going to be, and it might change like the design market itself. But it's also kind of a double-edged sword. Like if the game doesn't live up to the hype, it's going to make those delays look way worse than what they actually are. So that's my only thing with it. And I get to play Shadowlands before it releases, so I'm pretty happy.
That's a win all the way around. I have to say I'm heartbroken personally. I can't remember the last time I've been so hyped for a game, and to see the news about it going gold, which for those of you that don't know, it basically means that a game's ready to be produced on, hard copy and then distributed. So this game was, you would think finalized at that point. Maybe they're working on some last minute updates for launch day, things like that. And then Wayne, you actually, I think, had texted me the news that Cyberpunk's been delayed again. And I honestly thought it was a joke. I was like,
same.
Piss off. Like I'm not falling for that again.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the 4th or 5th time, this has actually been delayed. So and I guess the reason behind this disappointment too, just to give you an idea of what's come out since this game was announced ages ago, right? Since this game was announced, we've had 2 editions of The Last of Us come out on PlayStation. We've had Red Dead Redemption 2 and another big open world Rockstar game by the name of Grand Theft Auto 5. We've had 3 Gears of War, 9 Assassin's Creeds, 2 God of Wars, 11 Call of Duties have come out, 3 Watch Dogs games, and so many others, 2 Fallouts, 4 Battlefields. The list goes on. That's how many games have come out since this one's been announced. So if that gives you any idea behind the hype train here, that's why. It's been in development forever. I'm just absolutely dying for it. And the fact that I have to wait another 3 weeks now at home stretch, I can't do it. I may not make it personally.
Can you even begin to imagine if this game isn't good?
Oh my gosh.
Like, what if? I know
Like,
it's gonna be good. It has to be good. I mean, it's CD Projekt Red. They have a history of making fantastic games. Everything they've shown off has been great. Everyone that's got hands on with it has been so positive. It can't be a bad game, but you just can't help but wonder, the sort of reactions. If it's even if it's like an 8 out of 10, people are gonna freak out. You know?
oh yeah,
Well, the backlash
lives
is going
will.
to be so bad. It's
Yeah.
going to be so bad.
Can you imagine if it's like a No Man's Sky where we just get completely catfished and maybe it builds a redemption arc for CD Projekt Red where they need to come back and make like The Witcher 4 like or something like that to recuperate.
That's
I
insane.
mean,
That would be insane.
Oh,
and I
my
guess for
God.
some other news to drop on that too is Cyberpunk. So that game right now, if you pre-order it, we're a few weeks ahead of launch, which I can't recall if this is a gesture to make up for the delay or not. But right here in the US right now, I think it's $49.99 if you pre-order it ahead of the launch. So hey, getting a pre-order early and it's $10 off, I'm in. That's great. So I'll definitely be doing that before launch day. So
The first thing that came to my mind whenever that got delayed was like, I just imagined people in like Ubisoft's office, they knew they were going head to head with Cyberpunk. And then to find out that Cyberpunk was going back a month, I'm sure there was bottles of champagne cracked open at that stage. Guys, we're selling an extra million games here, no problem.
right.
Yep.
People are going to have time to play our games now, which is great. So there's some other recent releases that have come out here and towards the end of October and heading into November now. So the Pokemon Sword and Shield expansion pass for Crown Tundra and the Isle of Armor are out now, with the newest one just coming out. Pikmin 3 Deluxe, which just came out, Watch Dogs Legion, Baldur's Gate 3, Little Hope, the follow-up Until Dawn. Sorry, the follow-up of Until Dawn. There's also Hades and Teardown and Phasmophobia, which have all been recent releases. Jack, I know you're excited about the new Pokemon expansions.
Oh man, I am a big Pokemon fan, and Sword and Shield kind of was like a return to form for me with the Pokemon games. And so I think with this new expansion coming out, I'm gonna put a couple hours in. I'm gonna try and get all the legendaries, go through all the content for it, and it's gonna be a problem, needless to say. So it's pretty exciting. It's a pretty exciting time. I think oh man. That's a good one. Yeah.
Noted.
Noted.
No worries. I can edit that transition out, but
Sorry. Yeah.
You're fine. So without further ado, I guess, Wayne, anything on the recent releases coming out before we move on?
Yeah, definitely. I bought and I was planning to play Little Hope last night. I was a big fan. We talked about it on the horror episode. I was a big fan of Until Dawn. Supermassive, that's the developers that made that game, seem to be now focusing on Until Dawn style experiences, but just a little shorter. The first one they put out was it's all called the Dark Pictures Anthology. So the first one they put out was Man of Medan. And myself and my girlfriend sat and played that through in one sitting, but it's only about somewhere between 3 and 4 hours long. A Little Hope's the same again, and it's almost like pick a night and have like this interactive movie experience.
Right.
They're not perfect games. There's a few little issues with them, but the acting's pretty good. The stories are fun. I can't wait for Little Hope. Last night was Halloween night. I was hoping to play it then, but we ended up just watching a few movies. So we might get a crack at it tonight.
Yeah, what did you guys watch?
Really looking forward to that.
Any go-to horror movies here? Because we're just coming off of, I guess, the Halloween holiday, and we're now looking forward to Christmas and all of that extravaganza coming out.
We watched Brightburn and The Addams Family, the 1991 movie.
Ooh, okay.
Brightburn's an interesting one. He's familiar with it?
Yeah. Is that the one with the kid that's like the superhero, but he's like really evil and stuff?
It's basically what if Superman came to Earth whenever he was a baby, but he was a spoiled little. Yeah. He's just a horrible little kid, and the story goes from there. It's not the best movie in the world, but it's a fun concept, and it's an enjoyable watch. I like that.
Jack, what have you been watching?
I decided to go through a Romero marathon last night, and all the classics, the remakes, every bit of it. I'm a bit of a zombie fan myself, so like it was either that or I was going to try and find like Dying Light or some zombie games to play for the theme of Halloween. So it was fantastic. It was a good watch. I recommend it.
Truly the best time of the year. I've also got a zombie collection myself on Blu-ray, which I don't know if anybody even watches Blu-rays anymore. I still do. And it's about 40 zombie movies deep or so, just
Oh,
standard Blu-ray, and a lot of George Romero in there. And I made myself proud. I only watched one zombie movie the entire month of October. Me and the girlfriend have been watching horror movies pretty much every day of the month. And I managed to stay away from zombie movies because if it were up to me, that's all we would watch for 30 days straight. But
hey,
last night we watched the original Halloween and some others, but that's that's how it went for us.
hey,
So
variety's the spice of life, you know.
it is. It's a beautiful thing. So we've got a ton of topics to talk about here. Obviously, some DLC news from within the gaming realm, some comments from Phil Spencer. We've got the Sony voice recording and all of that. Some Google Stadia comments as well, and just a lot of other news coming up in the gaming world that's come out. So be sure to stick around and listen to this. But I guess we'll start off by diving right into some DLC stuff. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla, game's not even out yet, but we know what we're getting for DLC. We're getting Wrath of the Druids in spring of 2021, which is going to be in your neck of the woods, Wayne, in Ireland. Are you stoked about that?
Honestly, I don't know. I'll wait and see. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I've seen a lot of people commenting about going, "Oh, this is great! A game in Ireland. We don't really see that very often." And the first thing that came to my mind was Skellig Michael, the island that's in Witcher 3.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really, really iconic. Also used in the recent Disney Star Wars trilogy. It was the island that Luke Skywalker, done a run or two. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if they kind of try and pick out like actual locations in Ireland, and it's not just generic green fields and forests. Then yeah, I'll be keen to see it. I've always had a thing for either playing a video game in a real life location that I've been to, or vice versa, visiting somewhere where I've been to in a video game. I know I'm going way off topic here, but I'm just going to keep rambling anyway. There's a castle in Central Park in New York City called Belvedere Castle.
Very familiar with that.
And it was in the remake of Alone in the Dark. And it blew my mind how well I knew that area the first time I visited in real life. I was like walking around this castle going, I've never been here, but I know where I am. And, the accuracy that they had built it with was incredible. So I have a real thing for that. So if I do play this Assassin's Creed game and there's a sequence in a little town in Ireland and they've done it accurately, then I'd be keen to go and visit that place, to kind of wander around, go, this is the place. I stabbed someone over there and I put an axe through someone's head over there,
Wayne's not talking about real life, by the way. This is in the game. I think it's what he does on Friday nights, but that'll be interesting to see. I know Ireland's never really been anywhere, I'll be honest, anywhere near the top of my list for any game. And,
No.
having been to Ireland, it's a beautiful country. It's just for some reason, when you talk about Assassin's Creed, so many other things come up. And, I think, of China, Japan, having that feudal, ninja era, things like that, it seemed to fit it really well, but we just haven't really got something huge like that yet. Sure. And to think Ireland's coming out of nowhere is just so cool. And then we've got the Siege of Paris that's coming out in France. It's in summer 2021 for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So we know 2 pieces of DLC. That's Wrath of the Druids in Ireland in spring. And then we've got the Siege of Paris, which is going to be in France, obviously, in summer 2021. So how about that? Way to go, Assassin's Creed.
Cool.
Really exciting, yeah.
I see in that too as well. We've got Elden Ring coming out. So obviously that's stirring some hype, right?
The hype for that is unreal. For those that don't know, Elden Ring is the next game by From Software, the guys that make Demon's Soul, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, those sort of hard as nail video games that, that's their unique selling point, that, that these games are so tough. I've got a friend and he's constantly contacting me going, have you heard anything about Elden Ring? Have you heard anything? Shout out to Marty because he's been watching the podcast and loving it. Yeah, so they tweeted out, From Software tweeted out just saying that, yeah, we're still working on it. That's all they said. No extra screenshots, no trailer, no details, just we're still working on it. And Twitter lit up, and there was memes and everything, and the excitement, and it just shows the passion in the fan base for that game. it's a great. I think it's a great thing to see. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice to see build up for a new franchise too. I mean,
Yeah,
there's nothing to really build off of other than previous games that aren't related to this, and just to see it to get the hype, it's really deserving of. That's a beautiful thing.
definitely. Yeah.
I think it's always really exciting to see them kind of break away from their like Dark Souls titles too. Like when they made Bloodborne and Sekiro, like those were two just stellar games. And so I think it's a really exciting thing. And I know I'm always on the edge of my seat when From Software starts releasing stuff like that. So like I'm waiting for like screenshots, lore, like every world building things for it. Like, yo, I'm hyped, and I don't even know much about the game yet. So, oof.
Oof.
Yeah.
So I know.
Ooh.
I know we've got the PlayStation VR that was recently touched on with some notes there. So obviously VR has been kind of a thing this generation, but not really, more so on PC than on consoles. So I don't know if that's like the redheaded stepchild right now of video games where, obviously, yeah, it's a thing and there are people that love it out there, but Sony just kind of might have crushed some hopes and dreams. And Wayne, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
They did. They basically came out and they said that there won't be a PSVR 2 this year or next year or even the year after that. And a lot of people sort of reacted and went, "Oh, that's PSVR confirmed for 2023," which I think's a bit optimistic. That's not what they're saying. They're saying that they're basically saying that VR currently is not a priority, and I think it's a real shame because VR was something that's slowly been building a following, and people have started to get on board with it. And I think if Sony let it tail off and then wait 4 years and then go, here's PSVR 2 and try and ramp that hype back up again, I think you're going to have lost so many people. I think it's something that needs consistently built upon. One of the things that also was raised is that there's PS4 games that run on PS5, and then there's some of them that'll have a new version. The new versions that have PSVR elements to them won't work. You'll have to play your PS4 games backwards compatible to use any VR functionality. And again, to me, that's them saying it's kind of on the back burner. It's kind of something that's done and it belongs to the PS4 era, not the PS5 era. And I think it's such a shame. I would love to have seen them. I would love to have seen them come out with a PSVR 2 a little sooner, or at least, whet our appetites and say, it's sorry, we don't have this coming now. We're focusing on PS5, but it's in the works. And don't worry, we're still supporting VR. We still love VR. We still want to push VR. But instead, the signal or the message that they've given out is sort of, nah, we don't care. And I think that's a real shame. As someone, I mean, if you watch the top 10 podcast that we've done of Last Generation,
a lot of yours are VR. Yeah,
I think I had 3 VR titles in the top 10 because the technology, the immersion of them just blew me away. So as I say, I'm more bummed out about that than I am about Cyberpunk getting delayed by a month.
You would think with all the hardware power we've got coming up soon on these new consoles that there'd be a little bit more capability to, invest in VR and stuff like that. But I'll say personally, I think it's kind of a loss for gamers not seeing Sony or any major company invest in that after Valve just put up Half-Life Alyx on VR, here in the last year or two, which was awesome. And now to hear Sony say that, it's kind of a bummer. But personally, I hope if nothing else, it lets them just prioritize making good games. So, I don't know how much VR is going to impact that either way. Maybe that, frees up some development time for them as well. Maybe it doesn't. But if nothing else, I hope it at least gives them the time to just focus on making the games, because I've never been a huge VR fan. Personally, being like 7 feet tall already, it almost makes me sick to even use it in the house, because every time I've got it on and I'm trying to do anything, like I just get absolutely dog sick. It's horrible. And I know everybody doesn't experience that, but it's at least me, so I could honestly care less. But I think it is kind of a loss for gamers when you see something being, not so much taken away, but at least not being invested in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've only played a couple games on VR before, like Beat Saber and stuff like that. And I think it's like a really immersive escaping experience. And some people even like to do it for like the physical activity aspect of it. But like, I think one thing for me is like, there's a definite market for it, and it's not like a niche player base. Like a lot of people like VR, and the fact that they're not investing in that is really kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my thoughts on a VR at the minute is that it's very separate from the sort of games that we're talking about. You've got things like, Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty and Cyberpunk, and these are like really, really, high quality games, 60-hour experience sort of things. And then on VR, you've got, to be honest, everything lasts 2, 3, 4 hours, and it's more of a VR experience than a full blown game.
Mhm.
To me, there's a destination that we need to reach where these two worlds collide, where we get 60-hour high quality games, AAA games that are VR experiences, but we won't get there if VR isn't pushed and promoted, and if the companies that are putting it out there don't believe in it. And I, I hate to repeat myself, but that's how it feels. It feels like Sony doesn't believe in VR anymore.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of that too comes from previous gimmicks, and I'm not calling VR a gimmick here, but I think in previous, failures of Sony where they've just been afraid to branch out. I think of PlayStation Home, if anybody remembers that back on the PS3, where you live your own life basically in the, I don't know, even know what to call it, the lobby area, basically. And that was horrendous. They had the PlayStation Motion thing, which they tried and, didn't really hold a candle up to the Wii, what they'd already adapted there. They also had, I believe, that motion camera back on the PlayStation 2, if anybody remembers that. And they do these things for like one console generation and then just abandon it completely. And I'm not sure what the reasoning is behind that, if it's just a complete failure, if it's a financial loss or what, but they seem to have a track record of doing that.
I think what happens there is you mentioned a camera there for the PlayStation. There was one I remembered where you actually got a board game and you pointed the camera at the board that you were playing the board game on, and then on your TV screen you could see that board, but it was augmented reality. Yeah. So you seen like these dragons and these creatures walking about the board. I think what Sony do is Sony create the hardware, and then they put it out there with 1 or 2 games. And the idea is that other developers go, oh, we've got these fantastic ideas that we could use this for. But the thing is, if there's only, for talk's sake, let's say there's 50 million PlayStations out there, and only 500,000 people have bought this camera, then a developer isn't going to want to make a game that only 500,000 people can buy. They want to make a game that the full, everyone who's bought a PlayStation can play. So you end up narrowing it down. I think it's the reason, that's why Xbox, whenever they pushed Kinect out with the Xbox One initially, they said everyone who has an Xbox has Kinect. And that was a push to get developers making games for Kinect, because you didn't have that barrier there anymore. You weren't sitting going, well, why should we make a Kinect game when only 10% of Xbox owners have Kinect? It's the same with all these peripherals. You've seen it so many times. Nintendo were a nightmare for it. Nintendo released a console, and there's like, for the first year, there's like a new peripheral every 2 months. The balance board and the new hoop thing.
The Ring Fit.
Yeah, they're crazy for it.
Yeah, and I see a lot of that on the Ring Fit now too, which I guess, hey, if it's keeping you alive during quarantine, more props to you. But I mean, personally, those kinds of things, I just can't get into it. So I guess to transition onward, so Phil Spencer, obviously we know Xbox has acquired Bethesda ZeniMax at this point, and that's a big talking point, because not only did that initial news come out, but he's gone on to say, when asked in an interview, I'm just going to quote this here, when asked directly whether Microsoft could recoup its $7.5 billion investment without shipping Elder Scrolls 6 on the PS5, he responded, yes. This deal, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, but said this deal was done not to take games away from any other player base or anything like that. But then he goes on to say later here in the same quote, I don't have to go ship these games on any other platform other than the platforms that we support, being Microsoft, in order to kind of make the deal work for us, whatever that means, end quote. So obviously, I think that makes me more nervous than the U.S. election right now, because the thought of Elder Scrolls being held hostage or anything else is just hard to think about. I mean, and personally, I can't see the Elder Scrolls being held hostage, but I can see things like Dishonored, maybe Doom, maybe one of the smaller franchises under the Bethesda umbrella being held hostage. But wow. What comments?
We've had a lot of time. Sorry, we've had a lot of time to digest this, and I think at this stage, all those games from Bethesda, ZeniMax, all the other studios that fall under their umbrella, they will be Xbox exclusives. That would be my prediction. Now, Phil said within his statement there that he didn't buy these games to take those games away from other people. But I think from his perspective, he's not making them Xbox console exclusives. He's making them available on Xbox console, PC, xCloud, and I think he will see that the Xbox family of systems is pretty much available to anyone. You know, there's talk of streaming sticks. So literally, you get like a little Fire Stick style thing. You plug it into the side of your TV. You buy a controller, and you can play all the Xbox games off the cloud. So I think while they may make them Xbox system exclusives, they won't be console exclusives. And in his mind, no one will be prevented from playing those games. I think that's basically what he's saying there. That's my interpretation of it.
What do you think, Jack?
I'm in agreement with that for the most part. I do think the only thing I kind of differ on, just a pinch, is I think that like Bethesda and ZeniMax will have contractually been obligated prior to the acquisition to publish at least a couple more titles on like Sony's upcoming console. And so I do think we might get to see Elder Scrolls 6 if there was like a contract for them to publish it on Sony before that acquisition. But I think after a certain frame of time, it is going to, like Wayne said, it'll go to like, the Xbox and PC specifically. But I think it's going to mainly revolve around the timing of, when were these contracts signed before the acquisition or after the acquisition, and what Microsoft wants to do about those contracts and see if they can nullify them. That's probably my take on it, to be honest.
I wonder too. So let's talk a little bit about Sony here, right? Because obviously they haven't said anything about this, but Sony's been playing a little bit dirty here in the past with things like, timed exclusives. I think of, just for an example here off the top of my head, I know there's a ton of other things out there that Xbox has done as well, but just Sony, for example, some of the things they've done with like the last 3 or 4 Call of Duties. Typically, they'll get the beta weekend first. So that was definitely the case with the most recent one. They'll also get, I think even this upcoming one, they've got the zombie mode that's going to be exclusive to them. Not the entire zombie mode, but a mode within zombies that's going to be exclusive to PlayStation for the first year. They've been doing little things like that for years now. And maybe this is Microsoft's way of saying, hey, you know what? You want to play hard? Here's this. And we're just going to hold Elder Scrolls hostage for, the next 8 years. I guess they could do that. And who's to stop them, right?
I mean, that's true. And I think it also helps with like that whole narrative of the fact of like Xbox or like Microsoft doesn't really have that much of an exclusive library either. So it kind of fights that narrative as well, that they're going to have pretty much almost an entire Bethesda line of games that they have at their arsenal at this point, which is huge.
That's absolutely massive. Yeah. That's gonna be interesting. Sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
I think one of the things that's really interesting about the way that question was worded to Phil Spencer, one of the things is it says recoup the $7.5 billion. That's almost implied that Microsoft like borrowed some money to go and buy something to then invest in it and try and make that money back. That's not accurate. This is money that Microsoft had, They just straight up bought them and now they own them. So they spent $7.5 billion, and with that $7.5 billion, they get $7.5 billion of assets and IPs that they now own. So they're not $7.5 billion down. They don't need to recoup that money. They just need to, keep on businessing, for want of a better word, I think people underestimate just how much money Microsoft actually have. It's a lot of money. It's an insane amount of money. We said before it's twice what Disney paid for Star Wars, but it's money they had and they don't have to recoup it.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. So moving on to some lighter news. I'm sorry, I can't even say this without laughing. So Nintendo, for anybody that's a fan of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate out there's recently been a new DLC character, which is Steve from Minecraft. And he's joined the lineup now. There's a ton of characters to play as, but Steve from Minecraft, which is your default character, has joined the lineup. And there's been some controversy around that. I'm sorry I can't say this without laughing just because I'm looking at the picture in front of me, if you two are as well. But so there is this new victory pose from Steve in Minecraft, right? Where if you win a match in Smash Bros, you've got your character pose or whatever. And Steve from Minecraft is holding his, I guess you could call it meat, which is, like cooked meat or something like that from the Minecraft series. And it's all pixelated, but he's holding this piece of food in front of him in a way that's like almost suggestive. And it looks like he's holding something else, if you know what I'm saying. And the fact that this came to a Nintendo game and it's the celebration screen for when you win. And I'm not saying like Nintendo's like this exclusively super family friendly thing, but the fact that this made it into the game and nobody thought about this before it made it out to Reddit and just, was everywhere, I think is absolutely hilarious. I can't get over it.
I think like
how innocent must the minds of the people at Smash Brothers development be?
I mean, look at this thing. Look at
nothing
that.
in their mind went, oops, that looks a bit like.
I legitimately thought it was like a doctored meme for a minute when I first saw it. And I mean, like that was first glance. Like it wasn't like it took me a minute to look and be like, what's up with this picture? I legitimately was like, that's pretty suggestive. And the fact that had to go through like thousands of eyes and then like the exclusives were like, all right, send it. Like it went through that whole process and no one brought up that it looked like, if you just go look at the
it looks like Steve's meat.
Yeah, it looks like Steve's meat. It really does. It's so bad. I mean, I'm not gonna lie though, I did save it as like my phone background. It was so good. That was so funny.
So, I mean, if you're listening to the show and you're not familiar with what we're talking about, just go to Google Images and type in Steve's meat. And I don't know what's going to come up, but hopefully it's just the Smash Bros. But again, it's really, it's a good look because, man, to think something like this made it into a Nintendo game to me is just absolutely mind-blowing. And I hope we get more gaps like that in the future because this thing, I mean, I kid you not, I didn't see it on the internet first. I actually have the DLC. I have the Fighter Pass on Smash and was playing around with it a little bit, got to the victory screen and I had that and was like, huh, that's cool. And then like 2 days later on Reddit, I saw this was like this huge thread and was like, what is that? Oh my God, Steve's meat is a thing. And then it clicked for me like, wow. So for them to be for Minecraft and Nintendo to be involved in something like that, I think it's just childishly hilarious. It just shows how much I've matured in all my years of life that I haven't actually. And the fact that something like this can still be funny is great.
I think on like a kind of a piggyback on that, it's kind of cool to see like even to see how far we've come with game development, to see slip ups like that is very reminiscent of like old style games and how they used to have kind of like provocative slip ups in it, And so I think seeing that it was kind of like lighthearted and like refreshing to see, even though it was totally 100% a mistake.
It almost parallels the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas hot coffee, right? Does it not?
100% absolute parallel. 100%.
So I guess moving on to lighter topics here as well, or sorry, maybe a darker topic, depending how you look at it. But Sony, there were some comments recently about, I guess you could call it voice recording, which is essentially news had broke and it wasn't true at first. So somebody had reported that Sony's going to be recording people's voice recordings, right? For storage or whatever reasons. And it was reported that, hey, Sony is going to be listening into all your conversations basically and moderating what's said and what's not said. That wasn't true. But it did draw enough attention here in the last week or so to where Sony's VP of global consumer experience had to come in and try to put out a fire with it. So she came out and basically clarified that Sony will still record all chats in the voice, which, is kind of a new thing. But it's going to be within the past 5 minutes on a rolling basis. Players will still be able to submit a small clip for Sony's moderation team to review if they feel like something violated community guidelines or if they feel harassed or something along those lines. So your voice is still being recorded technically, but not in the way people think it is. It's not like you think of Big Brother or FBI or Uncle Sam coming in and saying, hey, what are you doing in there, boy?
You got some Orwellian stuff going on.
But yeah, I mean, gosh, that was just such a strange thing to hear Sony say, especially right before a console launch, because I think no matter how good of something like that can be, especially with combating toxicity in the gaming world and things like that, it's going to be misconstrued and just taken away out of context in any way, shape, or form, no matter how you see it. But thoughts on that?
It's a tough one though, isn't it? I mean, it is a tough one. I think their intentions are gold. You know, I don't think they're trying to do anything underhanded. I think it is genuinely trying to tackle the problems that come with these online games where people are just horrible. Quite
You guys
frankly.
both grew up in this era too, as well, right? We have the old. I remember the old OG Xbox Live days, and
Oh shit.
original interactions, and that was tough. Man, people are assholes.
Oh yeah, no,
Like,
they're awful. And like I think that's kind of going off of that, like the gamer language and how people talk to one another is atrocious. Like people have been bullied and harassed online for years. And I mean, it's nothing new, right? Like, remember when Blizzard released that they were monitoring chat for Overwatch and like both listening in and in typed chat as well? And like,
and they're censoring type chat too,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And no one really put much thought into it. They were just like, oh, I guess Blizzard's really trying to censor gamers. But it's like, one, it's like a private company. They can kind of do what they want with their chat. Two, they're not going to tell the government you're saying stupid shit. The most that they're going to do is just be like, hey man, you need to really stop, put a ban on the account and whatnot. Like, it's nothing really extreme. It's people are thinking way too much into it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, like, I mean, how all that turns out in the future. But personally, I think it's a good thing for gaming. I think it's a win. I think anybody that grew up in the old days of Xbox Online, I think of like back to, gosh, even something like COD 4 Modern Warfare. And I know that's not the oldest thing out there, but you know, if you had two teams lined up in the lobby, some of the shit talk that would go on was just absolutely mental. Sometimes it would just turn into complete harassment where, you know, obviously a lot of things have happened in the past where people show up to people's houses. I mean, they follow you around online. Just crazy things have happened, right? And
oh yeah,
you know, I think of, you know, the gaming community now is, I like to think it's better. In a lot of aspects, it's not, because I do get online pretty frequently and I hear some stuff that's just mind blowing. But I think of like raising a kid in that kind of environment. You know, I know like 13-year-old me, I like to think was super hard into it and it's not a big deal, but you know, I don't have any kids now, but I would like to think if I did in the future, I certainly wouldn't want them being exposed to that. And, you know, having a community like it was, I'd say 20 years ago, where it was just, you know, an absolute slaughterhouse online in the voice chat and the text chats. But any other thoughts on there before we move on to, we got, speaking of controversy, the Google Stadia comments? All right, well, let's kick it off then. So recently, the Google Stadia, so the redheaded stepchild of, you know, gaming at this point in time, a developer there recently set off a little bit of a firestorm. So about a week or so ago now, on October 22nd, he had tweeted out something along the lines of, I'm just going to quote it here. So this is from Alex Hutchinson. Streamers worried about getting their content pulled because they used music they didn't pay for should be more worried by the fact that they're streaming games they didn't pay for as well. It's all gone as soon as publishers decide to enforce it. He followed that tweet with the exact same quote here. The real truth is the streamers should be paying the developers and publishers of the games they stream. They should be buying a license like any real business and paying for the content they use. Oh, end quote. Oh my God. Wow. I mean, that was thoughts. Thoughts.
I'll take this one then. I'm not gonna focus on who said this because I'm not a fan of Stadia and I don't want that to impact what I'm about to say.
We're not getting any sponsorship anyway. From
Never ever. I don't know what spurred him to say that, and I don't particularly like the way he went about saying it, but I think there's an element of truth to what he's saying. And I'll explain what I mean. We all know and we all accept that you can't take copyrighted music and put it into your YouTube videos or your streams. That is art that someone has created, usually with the purpose of making money from it. So if you want to do that, you got to give them a little bit of money. Same with a movie. Same with like Tony Hawk's. The Tony Hawk's game or the GTA games. They want to put copyright music into their game, so they got to give some money to the people that created that. And then that's fair, okay? Now the world's changing, and it's only very, very recently, relatively speaking, that you can make money. You can make a living by playing video games on the internet. And
it's every man's dream.
Yeah.
And woman. Like, yeah.
So you play those games, people sit and watch you, they donate money to you, you can get money through ad revenues, and that's your career. You're now a professional streamer. but you are making money. You are making a living off the back of a product that someone else has put time and effort into to sell to make money. So why shouldn't they get a percentage of that?
Would
Why?
they get a percentage of that though, or like if I think I've been
Currently, no. So the status quo right now is that you can play someone else's video game, you can stream it online, and they get absolutely nothing. Um, and there's artistic assets in that game that an artist has created, and that is now being used for someone to make a living with, and the original creator gets nothing from it. I would put the question out there: is that fair?
Would you say on the counter side of that, though, are they getting revenue from the streamer paying that in exposure?
Are they getting revenue? Well, currently, no.
I guess no revenue. I guess indirect revenue through people, discovering the game through that stream and then going out and buying it.
I get what you mean. Yeah, so it's potential free advertising. Yeah. But, when they made Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, when they made GTA, they didn't go to the bands and the musicians and say, hey, put your music in my game, and then people will go buy your albums. It was money up front. We want to use your assets in order to promote our product. I don't see how it's different. Of course, it's different, but there's similarities there as well. And I do think it's only a matter of time that if you decide I'm going to make a living by streaming a Resident Evil game, then Capcom's going to get 5% of your income, and I don't think that's entirely unfair.
Wow.
Didn't Nintendo kind of address this several years ago when they used to strike people's channels on YouTube for showing features of like their game content and stuff like that?
They did.
It's kind of a throwback to that a little bit. I'm kind of in the middle ground between you two. I'm gonna play like a little bit of a devil's advocate. I do think like I agree with Wayne, and especially like as a creative myself, like I would like people to pay me for like, if they use my assets, if they use my images, anything like that, right?
You're an artist, right?
Yeah. And so like if like I've had people ask, hey man, can I use these images? Hey man, can I use these images? And like how would I look at it like at that and then be like, yeah, man, I want you to pay to use my images, and then look at like game devs and then get pissed off if they want people to like charge for their content being shown. I mean, there used to be such a problem, and I'm guilty of this, right? Especially like story-driven games where people would used to watch videos or streams of story-driven games and watch the whole lore content and just get the understanding of the whole storyline without having to buy the game. Honestly, it's kind of a slap into the face to the developers. But then on the other end of things, you get games like, just purely multiplayer experience games, and you're like, well, there's not really much of a storyline to it. You're not really getting much out of it than just watching some like footage. But then you kind of have to draw those lines and distinctions. It's kind of muddied. I think there's merit for both sides of the issue, but it's definitely, I see where that dev was coming from, and I agree that his wording was not necessarily the best.
I just don't think that's and I'm not going to call it a non-intelligent thing to say, but I think of like the Google Stadia, the position that's in, right, where it's still relatively new to the gaming community. It hasn't been widely adopted like a PlayStation or an Xbox or Nintendo, right? You're on the come up. You're an up and coming, console, I guess, if you want to call it that. And you come out and you say something like that. I mean, like, that's just such a black eye, I feel like, in the image of Stadia. It's not consumer friendly, in my opinion. I think legally, yeah, they could push that envelope they could absolutely say, hey, pay us, you're streaming our game. But I don't think this is a good time to push that envelope. Could you imagine if Microsoft or Sony said that right now?
What if they planted the seeds for
them? Oh my God. Yeah.
Like, what if they...
I totally agree with you. Like, there's a potential narrative to be pushed here. Why is it him? Why is he coming out and saying this? There's maybe a discussion for the industry as a whole to have right now. But one guy, especially a Stadia guy, as you say, like, what are you doing? It's like he's baiting people. There's people that go on the internet just looking for a fight.
Right.
That seems to be what he's doing. I'm curious. As I say, I don't know what triggered this. I don't know why he came out and started making these comments.
Could it be in relation? Because I think Twitch recently made a statement like within the week or so that they're going to start doing hard DMCA strikes for music content. Like, they were really soft about it a while ago. Yeah. And then this week they just released it. So I think it's in regards to that. And that's why he's coming out. Because a lot of streamers, like everyone on Twitch was just bitching the whole time. And so I think that might be part of what it was that kind of spurred that to happen.
I wonder, so, I mean, let's say they go down this road, right? And we start having streamers and gamers, people that share clips on YouTube even. I guess that would apply technically, right? Because you're still sharing that content.
Yeah.
You know, you've already paid for this game. You've paid your $60 now to be $70 for these games. And now you're going to have me pay a business license fee or royalty fee, whatever you want to call it, just to share that content. Like, that stuff is so integrated right now into the way Microsoft does stuff. You know, you think of like double tapping the home button on Xbox. You save that last 30-second clip, whatever. I mean, technically, you can't even publish that now without paying a royalty fee, right? If this goes through, same thing.
I mean, could you apply the same logic if you pay $1.99 for a song and then just feature it in your videos? Like, would you still have to pay those royalties?
Point. True. Yeah, so I guess ultimately, you know, legally they could push this, but I just don't think it's the right time.
I agree with you on it. Like, I wouldn't want to see it happen, especially like me. I kind of want, if I'm thinking about getting into the streaming thing and I'm sitting here like looking at this like, ooh, maybe not. I might have to rethink plans now.
If I'm streaming, like, I probably don't make a lot of money anyway, right? I mean, like, and so to come in and already take a bigger cut out of what I already don't make is just mind-blowing to me. I mean, you might even lose money, right? I mean, I guess it'd be based on what you make, but
and that's a good point. Because like if you bring up like streamers who are just getting into it, right? Like just starting out, we're not talking like, you know, what was it, Doc Dangerous or your ninjas, right? Like they can fork out that money. They can, oh, hey, we want you to pay to show our content. Like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll make it back tenfold. But then you have like your Joe Schmoes that'll start playing whatever the game they want. And then you have these developers that are like, hey fam, pay me 10% of your income, and then all of a sudden you just made like $10 for your first month of streaming. It's like, well, shit, man, I just made enough to maybe buy a candy bar or a soda. Like now I'm getting screwed. Like, so that's a good point. I think that's a really good aspect is like the new streamers that aren't making enough to like fork that over. Would it be percentage based? What would happen?
So Stadia legally is in the right here, but would you equivalate this to Metallica and Napster in the early 2000s?
Yes, I would.
It's really similar, and it's similar in a way that these are new technologies and new ways of people consuming media. So to me, yeah, it is so similar to that. And again, I remember such a backlash towards Metallica.
I did too, yeah.
Because the drummer came out and said, "Please don't steal my music."
Lars Ulrich pushed that envelope hard, didn't he?
There was please stop stealing from me, and there was a backlash. I mean, I think that's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And it's almost like there was a sense of entitlement at that stage. I'm entitled to your music. I'll just take it if I want it. You know, these are guys that, yes, they're probably millionaires, and yes, they've got lots and lots of money. Doesn't make it okay to steal from them. You know, it's still their living. It's still what they do to make a salary. It's still how they get by. It's still how they pay their bills. And all the guy was coming out and saying is, "Please don't steal my music." And he got hammered for it. Absolutely hammered. I thought that was unbelievable.
At the time, too, I mean, if you think back to the early 2000s, there was, obviously they were going against Napster was a big one, but there were a ton of other platforms out there where you could steal music if you wanted to. I think of FrostWire, LimeWire.
LimeWire is the one I remember. Yeah.
LimeWire was the big one. If I didn't give my parents' computer every kind of disease on the planet using LimeWire, then, you know, and thanks to my parents for supporting me throughout childhood when I destroyed every single computer we ever owned. But
I was just starting out my career working in IT, and see then you could make an absolute fortune from people just bringing their computers going, it doesn't seem to be working the way it used to. And you'd open it up and there'd be like Donkey Share and LimeWire and like not even Napster, like a bootleg version of Napster, you know? And it was just, the computers were such a mess. And it was like, can you not just clean it up? I was like, oh God, you know.
I do a bit
fun
of
fun times.
Well, I guess in other news here too, we've got another delay for Sony and Destruction All-Stars. That's being pushed out to 2021. Man, another one.
This is a good move. That is a game that would have been lost amongst the launch titles. There is no way. Absolutely. And it was $60 as well. It was launching at $60. I'm almost certain of that. And it looks like a sort of, I don't know if you guys have seen it. It looks a bit like it's got a Fortnite-y kind of look to it, but it's like a destruction derby style game. But when your vehicle gets destroyed, you're then on foot and you can run about. I don't know if you can steal other cars or get back into the race. But it's been pushed back to February 2021, and it's also going to be a PSN Plus title. And we've seen in the past how much that can help games. We're looking at you, Fall Guys. I would never have picked this up. There was no way I was, paying full price for this game. But if it's a freebie on PSN, you're damn right I'll have a go at it, and see if it's fun. And I'm sure they'll monetize the hell out of it now that it's going to be free. But I definitely think it's the right move for that game.
We also lost Halo Infinite to the year of 2021.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And, you just think about some of these bigger first-party games that were going to be here for launch, and now we're not going to see them till, who knows when. But especially with Halo, we don't know when that's coming out yet. They say 2021, but, you see recently, I think they lost a few of their staff members as well in that studio, and it's just not looking good right now. So who knows what happens there. But on some brighter news, Call of Duty, over 80 million downloads now. We're a week or two away from the new one coming out, and this one has over 80 million downloads. 80 million people playing Call of Duty Warzone to some capacity, which is free, by the way. Not the full game, but just the Warzone portion of it, which is kind of like a battle royale. And here a couple episodes ago on the podcast, that was, I think, one of my wish list items was to see like a zombie Warzone integration where maybe it's a crossover, and we got it. And sure enough, like not even a week later, COD comes out and says, "Hey, here's the Haunting of Verdansk," which is basically a nighttime mode now on the map, which includes zombies. I think it ends here in just a couple of days, but the fact that we even got something like that this late in the game from a developer and that life cycle, which I think is just absolutely mind-blowing to me. What a beautiful thing.
I have to ask you, that 80 million figure, I think it was they said that was like a record. They hadn't had a COD that was played by so many people.
Yeah.
Do you think that's down to the quality of this COD, or do you think this is a COVID thing?
That's a good question. Honestly, I'd say a little bit of both. Yeah. I know when COVID started back in, I think, February, March, for us, the first thing we did was, I remember it was me and a group of friends. We were circling on that and started playing it, I think, more heavily in February and March. And obviously here in New York, you can do a whole lot. And that was our go-to for some reason. It was just, a good multiplayer experience. It's a great game, by the way. Call of Duty, I've just been kind of dunking on it for 3 or 4 years now, just because, when wall jumping started and different things like that, I was one of those old schoolers that was like, I just can't keep up. These kids are too good. I'm trash. I have to accept that. But this one, I felt more boots on the ground, was just a really, really good game all the way around. It feels good mechanically. It's, just dead on all the way around. It's got crossplay integrated to it. So you can play with friends on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. That to me was huge because I got to play with so many people this time around I couldn't do previously. So that was nice. But I'd say it's probably more on the side of the quality of the game, honestly, just because I think this actually is the best COD in a long time in that series.
Wow.
So
okay.
It's hard to say with Cold War being not even a week or two away now, if people are going to jump ship or if they're going to stick around with Warzone. But I guess Call of Duty and Activision, they're pretty aware of that right now, that some people won't jump ship, which I completely understand because I played the Cold War beta and personally wasn't blown away. I'm still going to buy it, but I wasn't blown away by it by any means. And they announced a couple days ago the No Guns Left Behind initiative, where they're basically going to merge Warzone into Cold War, which is the upcoming game. So we're going to have both of those. You're going to have some crossover. Your guns are going to carry over some of your progress and different things like that. We haven't got a whole lot of details on it just yet, but that's going to be coming. So I think the fact that they're starting to merge those two together, it shows that they're at least self-aware that, hey, we put out a really good Call of Duty this year. Some people may not be jumping ship over to Treyarch's version of Cold War, and that just goes to show how good it was. So sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, definitely quality on this one. So Netflix adaptions, we've got a few of those coming up, right? Oh my gosh, we've got. Tell us about those, Wayne. I know you've been excited about these.
Okay, so the new one that's just been announced is the Assassin's Creed live action series. We've had an Assassin's Creed movie, which it wasn't awful. It wasn't brilliant. It was fine. It was fine. Interesting thing about that was that it was canon. So it's the same universe. The stuff that happens in that world is it's happening in the same world as the video games. And I believe this new TV series is doing the same thing, which is interesting because there's room for crossover there. There's room for pulling in characters that already exist within the games and not necessarily in reinterpretations of those characters, but it'll actually be those characters. If Altair shows up on this, it's Altair, the one we know and love. But beyond that, we know almost nothing about it. There's a part of me that wants to get excited about this, but we know as gamers, we've been burned so many times by movie and TV show adaptations. I think anyone who gets excited about a video game, TV show, or movie right now is a little bit deluded and just isn't learning from the past.
I'll say personally, I'm stoked.
Really?
I'll jump on the other side. I'll jump on the other side of that fence right now. Here's why. So, Netflix, right? I mean, it's the biggest streaming giant out there right now. I mean, I don't think anything's even coming close to it. I've got everything with Hulu and YouTube TV, some other streaming platforms, and Amazon Prime. I think Netflix is just doing such a good job, and here's why. Dragon's Dogma recently came out. Great adaptation. They had Castlevania, which has jumped over to Netflix. Excellent.
Was Dragon's Dogma animated?
It is. Yep.
Okay. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Okay. Oh boy. You've also got The Witcher, which controversial topic here. I actually thought it was great. I love the Witcher book series. I read those every time I get on a flight, and it's my go-to. And I thought it was a great adaptation. So I think Netflix is hitting home runs with these adaptations left and right. They haven't left me disappointed yet. And I guess that's just a matter of opinion, but I'm stoked for it. I can't wait.
The animated stuff, I totally agree with you. Castlevania, I didn't watch a lot of it. I keep meaning to go back to it. But really enjoyed what I watched of it. There was a Godzilla. I know that's not technically video games, but they done an animated Godzilla. Yep. Again, top notch, really, really good. I didn't dig The Witcher at all. Just did not dig it.
How dare you?
We could do another episode sometime and we can sit and argue about about The Witcher, video game and TV show. Yeah, but as well as that, they have announced another Resident Evil show. And this gets a little bit confusing because there's so much going on in the world of Resident Evil. Even putting the games aside, they had already announced a live-action Resident Evil TV series. And that was based around the Wesker kids. So if you know the character Wesker from the games, it's his children. There's also, they are rebooting the movies. So the company that made those, I think it's 6 or 7 Resident Evil movies, 7. They are rebooting it and they're going to start from scratch. And from what I hear, the first movie is going to be quite true to the original game. So
wait a minute. Let me make sure I got
Spencer
this straight
Manor.
Here. So you've got these remakes and everything else, the live action and now the animated series, are all under the Netflix umbrella, or
no? The movies aren't. So under the Netflix umbrella, you've got the live action one, which is the Wesker kids, and then I'll talk about it now. They're having a new Resident Evil animated series. I say animated, it's CGI, and it looks very similar. There's Resident Evil CGI movies. Don't ask me the names of them right now. I can't remember, but it looks very much along the lines of those. So there's a lot of Resident Evil coming at us, and we've got Village coming next year as well. So if you're a Resi fan, it's a good time to be alive,
I kind of actually got a question on that, like thinking of like how many Resident Evil or TV adaptations, films, and everything we are getting. Do you guys think Capcom's trying to make a move to go into more of like the film and TV industry as a whole? Because also Monster Hunter is coming out soon as well. I know it's a little bit different because it's not Netflix, but I'm thinking with all these moves like movies and TV shows with like a lot of Capcom IPs, do you guys think that's a move that they're trying to make?
I don't think they're moving into that. I think they've always been very open with, here's our IPs, give us some cash and go make movies, go make TV shows. The Monster Hunter world, that's the same studio that done the Resident Evil, and it's also Mila Jovovich. So one of the same actresses. It looks a lot of fun. I think if I was Like if I played the Monster Hunter games and I seen those army guys running about, I'd be like, what's going on here? This is nothing to do with the video games. But as someone who's not invested in that franchise, I think that movie looks like a lot of fun. I would definitely go see that if we ever, have cinemas open again.
Yeah.
Let us hope. Yeah, that's a good question. Capcom's branching out in so many ways with TV series and movies and stuff like that. And honestly, I loved the Resident Evil CGI movies. I thought they were way more action packed than the actual movies themselves, which were atrocious. So, I think the first couple of Resident Evil movies were good, but when it got into like Apocalypse and some of the other ones, it was just like, can you not, like, you're beating a dead horse here. It's like seasons 8, 9, and 10 of The Walking Dead. It's just not necessary. And fight me.
I don't think anyone will. I think that's probably like a uniformed agreement there. Those movies were so bad.
So bad that were good. I loved them. Like, honestly, like, it was a guilty pleasure. I knew they weren't good movies, but I loved all of them except for the last one. I hated the last one. Absolutely hated it. And
which one was? I don't even remember which one.
It was called The Final Chapter, right? And the very. I mean, by the time the movie ended, I was kind of like, you know what? I'm glad this is over. I'm done with this. God. But right at the very end, what do you call the character? Alice? Yep. Alice walks away from the camera and says something along the lines of, I thought this was the end of my journey. Turns out it's just the beginning. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's over. No. It's just let it end. Let this thing die and be done with. Oh, man. Horrible indeed. Horrible
garbage movies. Like, I can't even put it on the same status as like B-level movies. I mean, to me, it's just that bad. I'm sorry I'm beating a dead horse here, but
shall we move on then?
Yeah. Okay, so lawsuits. Speaking of, I know we talked about Google Stadia and some legalities there, but I see Electronic Arts is being sued by the Canada government over loot boxes. So that's interesting. I mean, wow. I don't think that's the first time that's been brought in with gambling and things like that, and somebody's being sued over loot boxes and how they're being used, and they've had to kind of monitor and adjust there. But the fact that this is still coming up like in 2020 when loot boxes have been around for a hot minute now is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's interesting that the government have stepped in. Someone's obviously sent a very strong message to them. Personally speaking, like, I don't necessarily want to see our video game developers getting sued and taken over the hot coals, but I do hate loot boxes. I hate in-game monetization, all of it. I just look back to games when you paid £60 or $60 for a game, and that was it. You got it, and if you wanted to unlock stuff, you played the damn game.
Until the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Horse Armor came out.
Oh
no!
Sin, just a
changed
sin.
Everything.
Oh my God!
I think it's
Elder Scrolls.
I think it's wrong that these developers put these in, and especially a lot of the tactics that they use to kind of make it more appealing to spend money. I think half the blame lies with the developers or their publishers that are kind of pushing them to do this thing. But I think the other half of the blame lies with the people that are spending the money on this stuff. I was going to say trash, but well, yeah, most of it is trash,
Yeah, I mean, I understand like paying for like, skins, different, cosmetics, DLC, things like that. That used to be a controversial topic, microtransactions, and I think at this point where we're at, it's just the way it is now. But loot boxes, I mean, I can't say I'm a huge fan either. The way they've been integrated into so many games. We can see sometimes where, it's in a game and you can still get items and it's not a big deal and it doesn't affect the gameplay in any way, shape, or form. But other games where, it's pretty much almost a paywall in a sense, if that makes sense. I can't think of any off the top of my head. There's just so many. I've just got like a visual of loot boxes spinning around in my head right now, and opening them and being disappointed and like having to get more and more. And it's, playing into that psychology of gambling and things like that, right? Where
like that dopamine release and everything like that.
It is, yeah. Like what's better than playing Overwatch and you get one of those loot boxes for the holidays and you open it up and you get that gold coin that lands on the ground and you're like, here's a skin, and it's the one you wanted. But finally, after 200 loot boxes, I got it.
I think sometimes when I discuss this topic with some like my younger friends, they kind of look at me like, yeah, okay, grandpa, it's because because that's just how games have been since they got into games. You know, I'm asking for a feature to be taken out that they've just grown up with and that they accept as normal, and they don't see the sort of the the more like sort of manipulative side of it, and how this is working. And not only that, how unnecessary it is. I mean, if you look at stuff like the bonuses and stuff that EA executives are getting, you know,
Oh,
they used to pull this excuse that, you know, we need to put this into it. It's the only way we can not put the prices of games up. You know, we need this income, and it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. That is just, it really is just greed, without a doubt.
Do you think, kind of speaking of like, the age thing, I think my only issue with loot boxes is like, and I can't believe I'm saying this because it's pretty much a think of the kids scenario, but like people who are underage, it's kind of like gambling in a sense, right? And so like, I think there's some merit behind the idea of like kids really shouldn't be the ones accessing this because I mean, they'll burn through whatever money they have, whatever money their parents have. I mean, have you ever seen like those news articles where kids will go through hundreds of thousands of dollars on their parents' credit card just to like burn through loot boxes? That's a
Yeah.
nightmare. And so I think that regards, like, yeah, there's definite responsibility and error on the developer's part. And I do think they need to kind of regulate that, like gambling in a sense of like, yeah, if you're not 21, don't mess with loot boxes sort of
right.
things.
If you're a developer and you know your target audience, like let's say a Fortnite is, primarily 9 to 15 years old, and you're putting in, something that could be considered gambling, that's shady. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very shady.
I know that in some games and on some consoles, there's kind of like a lock you can put on that if you want to spend money, just go ahead and spend money. Or you can put the lock on so that you need like a passcode or something before you can actually spend money. To me, every single game should be shipping with the tightest of security. And then if you want, for whatever reason, you want to let your kids spend all your money on Fortnite skins, then you have to actively take that lock off. You know,
I've got that lock turned on for me right now. Literally, like every time I buy something on iTunes, I have to literally keep that password protection on there for myself as a reminder of like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? this is the 15th album you've bought this month. You need to stop, please.
Because that's my first thought. See, when you see those stories of kid spends 200,000 on Fortnite skins, I'm sitting thinking, how, like, why were you even able to do that?
Yeah.
Do you guys ever think that it'll go to the extent of like what Korea and Japan does by essentially kind of what is it? They lock their social security to actually like their game accounts, and it prevents them from being scammed and buying into too many things. Like if their social security reads that they're not of an age to gamble, they can't actually do loot box or microtransactions that are similar to gambling. Do you guys ever think? Idea. Do you ever think like Western game markets will move in that direction?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's a hard. I think we love money so much that it probably can't, and it'd just be so hard to regulate. And I don't think we care enough to do anything about it. I think it's a good thing if it combats addictive behavior. It's a beautiful thing. But what about you, Jack?
Honestly, I don't think we're going to do it, mainly because we don't have that many at least speaking from like America, we don't do too many market regulations in terms of like media consumption and things in that sort of nature. And I think it'll be too controversial. Like, I mean, people get really upset just having to do very small or menial things anyways. So like you tell a gamer in America, hey man, you got to associate your soch with your gaming account, people are going to be pissed. I don't think it would go over that well, to be honest. I mean, maybe in the near future, if it becomes such a problem, people are going like legitimately bankrupt, just buying stupid things off their, of like loot boxes and everything like that. I could see it becoming an issue in the very distant future. But as of right now, no, personally.
All righty. All right. Well, gentlemen, any last minute topics here to discuss before we close this out and take it home? That's it?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, Jack Finley, why don't you tell us where we can find you on social media, the internet, Reddit, anywhere else for that matter?
You guys can find my Instagram handle. It is jacked up illustration. So jacked_up_illustrations, all lowercase. There you can find my illustrations, the work that I do, and you can contact me through DMs if you guys ever want a illustration or anything like that. I'll post typically what I'm going to be doing for upcoming projects, both illustration related and non-illustration related as well. So you can find me there.
How about that? All right. And again, that is Jacked Up Illustrations on Instagram. Look him up. He's got some good art, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, if you have a project or need some digital media, be sure to check out Jack Finley.
Thanks, brother.
Without further ado, thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, whether you're driving, flying, you're at home, you're at the gym, you're at the Taco Bell drive-thru, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Be sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing, leaving a like, leave a review. That helps us out a ton. We're just getting started here. We're only on episode 5, but again, that goes a long way. Feel free to send us some fan mail too. Again, that's at gamesaverschannel@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/gamesaverschannel as well. We also have a YouTube. Go there to find us as well. You can find us on gamesavers.podbean.com for our website, and you can listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, plus Alexa on Amazon, Pandora, and so much more. So be sure to tune in next week as well, as we've got the next gen preview edition coming up. We're going to break down all the games, all the consoles, everything out there that hopefully helps you make a good buying decision if you're still interested in getting those. And we'll be sure to see you next week for that. Other than that, thank you very much for tuning in, and don't forget to save your game.